Greetings from Singapore. It gives me great pleasure to welcome close to 800 virtual participants from around the world for the inaugural Singapore Reimagine MICE virtual show organized by the Singapore Tourism Board. Our hope is that international MICE players will be able to connect effectively with the Singapore MICE industry through this two-day event, and as a result, for you to generate business opportunities and leads so that you can point the way forward towards the recovery of our sector. Beyond the business-related appointments, STB has also curated a series of live streaming tours and culinary masterclasses featuring some of Singapore's most well-loved chefs. I hope you will make use of these opportunities to unwind and also to see how other parts of the tourism industry in Singapore have started to reimagine their products and offerings to reach a wider audience around the world. I am proud that Singapore has made good progress in tackling the COVID pandemic. Cases that arise from local transmissions within the population here are zero or near zero. And we have done so without closing our borders completely or imposing draconian lockdowns. These gains are hard-won and reflect a monumental effort across the private, public, and people sectors here in Singapore. Now, these efforts have allowed us to adopt a safe, gradual, and calibrated approach towards the resumption of events and activities, including higher capacity limits at tourism attractions, concert halls, hotels, and event venues. Last July, we launched the Safe Business Events Framework. We did this at a very early stage of our reopening because of the priority we place on the MICE sector as a critical enabler of the Singapore economy. The Safe Business Events Framework is a live document that provides guidance to event organizers in Singapore on how to plan for and organize events safely. As of February 2021, we have piloted almost 50 events in Singapore, including Travel Revive in November 2020, which was the first in-person international trade show to resume after the pandemic started, which had close to 1,000 physical, local, and international attendees. Just last month, Singapore also played host to the PCMA Convening Leaders 2021, which is a leading platform for business events industry leaders held outside of North America for the first time in its 64-year history. These successful event pilots have allowed us to learn and prepare to resume larger MICE events in the months ahead. Singapore has also started our national COVID-19 vaccination program and will offer free vaccinations to everyone who lives in Singapore. Last month, the Prime Minister announced that more than 250,000 people in Singapore have already received their first dose of the vaccine, and the entire population here is on track to be fully vaccinated by the end of this year. These signs give me optimism about the future of the MICE business. Now, while virtual and digital tools will replace some of our more mundane interactions, nothing beats the energy and excitement that comes from fruitful face-to-face meetings. We therefore look forward to working closely with our partners, including yourselves, to reimagine the future of business events in Singapore in safe, trusted, and innovative ways. I wish you fruitful discussions over the next 2 days, and I hope to see many of you in Singapore soon. Thank you.
Greetings from Singapore. Thank you for joining us at the virtual show and tuning into the Singapore Tourism Board's segment. It is a pleasure to be here at MICE Depot's broadcast studio. STB has partnered with MICE Depot to deliver today's segment. MICE Depot is one of the many event agencies in Singapore which have pivoted their businesses into digital content production and even invested in the development of their own in-house studio, where I'm standing here today. As Singapore has consistently kept the local transmissions of the virus low, we have made the calibrated move to transit into phase 3 of Singapore's reopening. Capacity limits in tourist attractions, hotels, and event venues have now increased, and social gatherings and dining limits in restaurants can now cater to up to 8 persons per group. COVID-19 vaccinations have also begun for us, with over 250,000 in Singapore having received their first dose as of early February 2021. We target to vaccinate the whole local population by Q3 2021 and latest by the end of the year. We look forward to reopening further, resuming more activities, and setting up travel arrangements with more countries. We have put in place various travel lane arrangements with 13 countries and regions as of today. The arrangements are robust, which allows us to review the fast-evolving global situation and make adjustments accordingly, such as suspending the lanes when the risk profile of countries changes. There are mainly 2 types of travel protocols. The unilateral opening is currently set up for short-term visitors with no restrictions on the travel purpose. They can be traveling to Singapore for business or leisure. No quarantine is required but travelers will need to undergo a PCR test upon arrival. Visitors coming in via the unilateral opening need to apply for an air travel pass. The second type will be the reciprocal green lane, or RGL in short, which caters for essential and business travel. As the name suggests, the RGL is a bilateral travel arrangement set up between Singapore and respective countries to allow for business travelers to come in on pre-declared itineraries. The RGL has been established with 7 countries. I would also like to touch on this new initiative, the Connect at Singapore scheme, which was just launched 2 weeks ago. It is open to business and official travelers from all countries for short-term stay of up to 14 days in Singapore, without the need to serve quarantine on arrival. The hotel cum business center offers meeting room facilities to allow business travelers to meet with local residents in Singapore or other international travelers in special rooms with airtight glass panels, separate ventilation systems, entrances, and exits. The gradual reopening of borders is implemented with necessary safeguards in place, balancing public health considerations and the needs of our economy and people. The health and safety of locals and visitors remain paramount, and tourism is expected to resume in a safe and gradual manner so that visitors can have peace of mind when they are here. On the business events front, we have developed a safe business events framework adapted from international best practices and Singapore's prevailing national guidelines. Since 1st October 2020, STB has already started accepting applications for organizers to pilot MICE events of up to 250 attendees. There are 5 outcomes under this framework that event organizers must achieve in order to resume business events. The framework takes into account an event attendee's entire end-to-end journey, including up to 14 days after the end of the event, and is designed to create a safe environment for meetings, as well as providing attendees with assurance of safety from arrival to departure. The key metrics are summarized in this infographic. Just to share details of the 2 pilot MICE events as case studies. We piloted daily antigen rapid test, which was conducted pre-event for both events. The individual's test results were generated within 30 minutes. Attendees were notified to arrive at the event venue approximately an hour before event to take the test. Once the test was conducted, they will wait at the holding areas for their test results to be sent to them via text message to their mobiles. And once a negative result is received, they can show the text to the organizer and proceed to the event hall. All attendees either downloaded the Trace Together app or were given a token to facilitate contact tracing. This nationwide initiative has been rolled out in Singapore and works by using Bluetooth signals to record nearby Trace Together devices. Proximity data collected is also anonymized and encrypted and does not reveal your identity. At Travel Revive, we also piloted safe exhibition booths with plexiglass shields to ensure that the exhibitor and visitor are able to have safe interactions on the trade show floor. Safe meeting pods were also piloted to allow business meetings to take place with a longer duration. Separate entry and exit points were designed for the exhibitor and buyer respectively. We also developed special hosted buyer itineraries with safe management guidelines, which allowed for foreign attendees to travel outside of the exhibitor or conference venues and enjoy local experiences. I think we all know how the pandemic has upended life as we know it. At the same time, it has also given us time and opportunity to reimagine what life could be in the future. In this light, the Singapore Tourism Board launched in November last year a new initiative to explore how we can work together with partners to create new possibilities and make travel better. We call this Singapore Reimagine. We hope to galvanize thought leaders from around the world through a series of global conversations to look at how we can make travel and tourism better. And at the same time, we are already embarking on a few experiences and initiatives. Here are some examples. Singapore Airlines is setting new standards of safety for air travel via contactless initiative. Changi Airport is now zero contact in all its terminals, with proximity sensors for all its kiosks and deployment of autonomous robots for cleaning. Business event venues are featuring state-of-the-art hybrid studio capabilities, as at Marina Bay Sands, or even here at the Mines Depot studio. All these to cater to an expected increase in hybrid events in the future. STB will continue to work with you to support your needs in this challenging time. We will continue to work with you and your partners to support your events, both physical or hybrid formats. Please feel free to reach out to us over the course of the two-day event, and we can share details of how STB can support you financially or non-financially in facilitating travel, event organization, implementation of the safe management measures at your events. We are optimistic of the future and are preparing for the recovery. And before I end, I would like to send a positive message to you out there, whether you're in lockdown or isolating yourself or struggling with the challenging times. We're in this together. With the international community, we stand in solidarity with you. And in closing, we'd like to share a short video on how we reimagine the future of travel in Singapore.
Work.
Work.
Work. Move it.
Dee 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 da.
Work.
Work.
Work. Move it.
Dee 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 da.
Work.
Work. Work.
Move it.
Dee 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 da.
Please stay at least 1 meter apart.
Move it. Dee 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 da. Dee 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 da.
Work.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from Singapore. First of all, a warm welcome and thank you very much for all international attendees for dialing in to watch this live panel discussion presented by Singapore Tourism Board. I'm Janet Tan-Collis, your moderator. A little bit about me, I'm a practitioner of the MICE industry. Currently, I'm the Chief Executive for East West Planners, co-founder for a digital platform called Ad Astra, and I served as the immediate past president for the Singapore Association for Convention and Exhibition Organizers and Suppliers. So enough about me. Today we have some wonderful panelists. We have 4 of them, And if I may, what I will do is to give a quick introduction before we start the panel discussions. Today we have about 35 minutes for the panel discussion with 10 minutes for questions and answers. But here, first on my right, we have Jeannie Lim, the Assistant Chief Executive of Policy and Planning Group in Singapore Tourism Board. In her role, Jeannie leads policy and strategy matters across Singapore Tourism Board, supporting research and data-driven decision-making processes. Prior to her current role, Jeannie led the Conventions, Meetings and Incentive Travel Division of the Singapore Exhibition and Convention Bureau. Next, I have Ms. Julie Tay, Senior Vice President and Managing Director for Asia Pacific at Align Technology. She is also a member of the Executive Management Committee in the organization. Julie has had more than 20 years, she doesn't look it, experience across various segments including consumer, healthcare, medical devices, and chemical businesses across Asia. Next, the only rose among the thorns. We have Mr. Sean Mills, Board of Trustees, member of the Council of Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, and the Global Director, High Rise at Rambo. He has over 25 years' experience in the decision and management of large infrastructure and building projects. Last but not least, we have Ms. Patricia Cheong, Associate Director, Development at Professional Conference Management Association, the world's largest and most respected, recognized network and community for business events strategists. Prior to joining PCMA, Patricia was the General Manager with the conference arm of Singapore Press Holdings. Throughout this session, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit the questions in the live Q&A text box found on the right panel of your screen. We will have 10 minutes, and at the end of the panel discussion, to answer some of your questions, Singapore Tourism Board will also address any of your questions on the chat panel where possible. So, here we go. Since, well, everybody knows about the COVID, but since October 1st, Singapore has had piloted events in Singapore, and they were done in many different forms. There were hybrid events, virtual events, as well as physical events. Here we have the panelists, and my first question to all of them is, why did you decide to have the physical components of your events in Singapore? And more importantly, what would you say are the biggest takeaway and learning points and insights from running those events? So perhaps maybe I'll start with the far end there. Sure. Patricia, please.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you. I'd like to thank the Singapore Tourism Board for inviting us for this panel session. As you saw from the video earlier on, PCMA, we held our first convening leaders outside of the US. So traditionally, convening leaders has always been an event for the business events industry, and it has always been in the US. So this year, we kind of make a decision to flip things around. Instead of having it a physical event, we turn it to be an omni-channel event. And first time ever to run this event outside of the US. And we wanted to, in a process of looking for a host city, we were looking for partners that could allow us that opportunity to create an immersive visual experience along with a potential hybrid audience so that we could use this event, convening leaders, to demonstrate how an omni-channel event could look like, how meeting safely could look like, and helping our members as well as the greater business events community understand how it could be to create future events face-to-face. And of course, Singapore came up because, number one, we felt that Asia Pacific was ahead of the rest of the world in terms of the pandemic, and Singapore is one of the leaders that's leading the industry's recovery. So in doing so, we decided to create a global broadcast center along with the Singapore Tourism Board and of course with the Marina Bay Sands, where we had that opportunity to bring the main stages live and launched it live from Singapore, from the MBS, to our global audience, who were able then to catch these sessions as and when they like. So omni-channel is really an opportunity wherever you are, whenever you can, however you would like to, you can join convening leaders. So that had that opportunity. And secondly, it also allowed us the opportunity to demonstrate how to meet safely. Because we had, over the 2 days, we conducted the antigen rapid tests for all the 300 attendees. So we had 3,500 attendees viewing online for convening leaders and 300 in-person attendees, which is a mix of both locals as well as international attendees and speakers who joined us in Singapore. So throughout those 2 days, we put them through, the 300 people, through the antigen rapid test. The participants after that told us they saw the rationale of having this ART in place, because that elevated the perception that they were able to meet in a safe, socially distanced manner. And at the same time, some of the feedbacks and takeaway that we found from this event was, even with this antigen rapid test, which was necessary, there came a longer check-in process, where the attendees had to wait 20-30 minutes for their test results. They had to be negative, to show that the organizers show us that it was a negative result before we allowed them into the conference area. So even during this period of time, as an event organizer, there is an opportunity to engage with your participant during this period of time. It does not necessarily need to be a downtime. You can turn this into an experience by itself. Taking an example of one of the restaurant chains here, the hot pot chains here, Hai Di Lao, they always have a long waiting list of patrons waiting to go to the restaurant, right? So what they did, instead of making people stand around, they gave them free manicure, free drinks, free snacks. So in the same way, we could, even in our own events as well, and I hope to inspire the events industry to start thinking this way. You could create a hospitality lounge. So instead of having cold sterile chairs where people stand there waiting for their results, you could actually have sofas, very much like the airport lounge concept. Create waiting pods or working pods where they could check emails. It does not necessarily need to be a downtime. We could create entertainment. We could have jukebox, maybe let people select the music that they want to listen to. Or maybe even make this into an educational moment. So for convening leaders, this is an industry for business events, community. So help them to understand what went behind this antigen rapid test, the whole logic behind it. Help them to see how they could implement this for their own events. And maybe at the same time for us to really get their feedback. How was the experience? Any ways of improvement? So these are things that we could probably have in place, or takeaways that we found from our January event.
But I think that's a great idea. Did you try it on for PCMA at the convening leaders, or this is a idea that you came up with after?
No, we didn't try it, unfortunately. It was more an afterthought, where we sat down and says, hey, it's a wasted opportunity. It's a missed opportunity. I won't say it's wasted.
So what you're saying is using a downtime for waiting for besides the test, for whether it's 30 minutes, and to use this, the organizers can use this time to actually network with the delegates.
Yeah, right. It can really be, instead of just being really an empty downtime, make it useful, increase the participant, because everyone talks about participants' experience. So this could be one of them.
Yep, good idea.
Yeah.
Sean, what about you?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the panel, and really interesting discussion. So, representing the council, we have a big physical event every year, and it's been going on for over 25 years. And for 2020, we selected Singapore for obvious reasons. But then the pandemic happened, and we scrambled. We thought to ourselves, what do we do? This will be the first time in, over a decade we haven't had a big physical conference for our members to join. So we started to, think a little bit outside the box, and actually it made us evolve. And so we decided to, instead of doing the large 2,000 person event at the Marina Bay Sands, we figured that's not going to be possible. Let's do something different. We actually selected to have a 3-city event. So it was going to be over 24 hours of content. Sounds crazy, I know, but it actually turned out okay. So we had Singapore, London, Chicago, where it would be physical in each location, but then also digital, where we would hand over and have dual content as the hours overlap. So it was really fun, but really challenging as well. In the end, what happened, because it was a changing situation, we ended up only doing the physical event in Singapore because it was the only place that had the right, setup to make it happen. So I'm really happy about that, and it was just really amazing for our local members to be able to meet in person. It was such a great energy and breath of fresh air. So, takeaways and learning points, I learned a lot last year. I think, the rules and what we knew was going to be happening, changing all the time. So for me, it was around, how to be flexible, how to be agile, how to develop a program that can shift and change based on, what are the circumstances, but also communicate a lot with our members and our potential attendees. The sooner we can let them know what's happening, the sooner we can let them know, what are the protocols that are going to be required and what they can expect, the more confidence we can give them to actually attend and actually, be a part of it. In the end, it was a really big success in all 3 cities, although I think we had way more fun in Singapore because we got to be together.
But tell me, when you said 3 cities, how did you deal with the time zones?
Well, it was a long day for our production people. We basically started, we actually had the event at Capitol Tower. We started there at the Big Picture, if you've been there, which is great. And I had our, because it was about 9 p.m. in Chicago, I had our chairman call in and open the conference as he usually does. And then he went to bed. And then we carried on. And then at around 4 or 5 p.m., London got up, and then they joined us. And we actually had a panel that was physical in Singapore and then virtual in London. And we had this great, international audience and interaction with international leaders. And then we handed it off, and we went and had a few glasses of wine together while they carried on.
But you see, today we would reach out to about 1,000, but how many did you reach out virtually?
We got about 1,000 virtual, so it was about 70 in person. And I think we limited that ourselves because we weren't that confident about all the rules. But it turned out great, and this year I'm really looking forward to what we can achieve. I'm very optimistic on.
I'll ask you that at the next question.
Of course.
Just hold on to that. Yeah. Julie, tell us yours.
So Align Technology is the maker of Invisalign and the iTero scanner, and we're directly present in 12 cities across Asia Pacific. So on an annual basis, we'll bring the entire team together into one city to roll out the plans for the year, do training, and of course celebrate outstanding individuals and celebrate wins. This year we're not able to do it, but because Singapore is the HQ for Asia Pacific, we decided that we will have live in Singapore. But we went through a kind of a thought process. There are options, right? We either cancel the whole event, which it's going to be a waste. We do it virtual totally, which I think, after 1 year of virtual meetings, a lot of people are tired of it. Or we do it a hybrid. And like I said, because Singapore is the HQ, we've decided to do the live event in Singapore. So we have about 150 employees attending the event live in Singapore. And another about 2,000 or so who dial in. Out of those, about 400 call in from home live because they're in lockdown situation. And then the rest managed to participate across 11 cities live across Asia Pacific. So you can imagine it's hybrid, it's live, so there's a lot of logistic involved, right? We're thankful. I think we had a lot of support from the Singapore Tourism Board. I think key learnings would be, it's really important to partner with, hotel partners who really understand what we wanted. So Shangri-La, I would, give a lot of credit to them. We've worked with them before. They truly understand, to your point, Sean, about being agile and, changing all the time. And we have production companies who also understood, what needs to be done in the individual markets where we beam live. All the bandwidth, the logistic, and everything else. Employee safety is critical to us. But we could have, you know, on second thought, we could have brought more employees into Singapore. Yeah, you know, especially folks where we have, you know, the direct channel and green lane that's available. But I think one major consideration for us was these individuals would need to serve 14 days quarantine when they get home. And so that's really quite an issue for us in that sense. Otherwise, you know, we would love to have as many people in Singapore possible to attend it live. So it's a great event. I think, you know, we met the objectives. There's a lot of celebration. People feel really connected because it's interactive. They're able to, you know, interact live at, you know, while things are happening. So, you know, I'll say it's really good. It's a good, I guess, new muscles that we have built, right? And, you know, and we know what to do and how to do it. It's highly complex, but something worth, you know, looking into.
But I understood from you that in the celebration that you were able to send bottles of champagne to each of the winners to their homes?
Yes, Janet. So, you know, it's a celebration. You are celebrating outstanding individuals. So to, you know, enhance that whole experience, you know, I think it's not just the individual, especially if you're locked down, sitting at home, participating live. I think it's quite miserable if you are the winner.
But it's not bad if
Kind of
everyone,
arrange, you know.
yeah, it's not bad if everyone, normally if you have champagne, you have to be polite and you have to have one flute or something. But if you send a bottle to each person, that's not bad.
It is
I
pretty
would
good.
stay
It
home
is
for that.
pretty good.
Right?
It is pretty good. So, you know, and then when you have it live and we show your achievements and, you know, we celebrate with you, I think it's very impactful. I mean, nothing like it, right? We could have done it virtual, but I think it loses the impact. Yeah.
So the other thing that I picked on was that you mentioned that you wish that there were more that could come over to Singapore and that perhaps maybe if there is a way to mitigate the 14-day quarantine. So on this note here, you know, Patricia, PCMA is a wonderful platform. And I think that perhaps maybe as a suggestion, moving forward, apart from the vaccines coming online, is that perhaps maybe industry leaders as well as some of the government sectors that can get together to do a white paper to see how this can be either minimized or brought down less. I mean, maybe that's your next meeting that you can do it in Singapore, you know?
That's a very, very, very good suggestion. I think all the more now, during this period, it's really important for the industry and for the governments to come together and support one another. I mean, partnerships is no longer just partnerships. You know, you really need to work together. And we're glad. We hope that PCMA, you know, we have a recovery discovery journey which we started end of last year, and we're happy for more people to join us so that together, you know, we can be a stronger voice.
Absolutely. But I think that's something that perhaps we need to resolve about. But here, maybe what would lead is we can have Jeannie, maybe Jeannie from the Singapore perspective. Perhaps you can share with everyone some of the strategies that you see that Singapore Tourism Board would like to take on and sort of lead us further. Right.
Yes, thanks, Janet. And thank you all very much for your sharing. I think I learned a lot as well from all the different ways you have reimagined your business events in many different formats, right? And that continues to inspire us to want to support and see how much further we can really push boundaries. So Janet, to your question in terms of what has been the overarching strategy for Singapore and the business events industry, well, very much, you know, business events has been very important and pivotal to Singapore. STB is an economic agency under the Ministry of Trade and Industry. So we truly were the supporters, really trying to lobby for the business events industry. We understand the importance that business events is to trade, to the economy, and to the various sectors. And we were looking at how we could do it in a safe and calibrated manner. So that really underscores the fundamental approach that we had. We had a lot of engagement sessions with event organizers. We looked at some of the standards in international markets. And we looked at our own national prevailing guidelines and safe management measures. And that's really how we came up with the Safe Business Events framework. So you would have seen in some of the earlier segments by Keith, our Chief Executive, as well as by Edward. So since 1st October, when we launched the approvals for the Safe Business Events framework, we have actually processed about 50 event applications that have taken place already. We're very excited about that, but we're also pushing boundaries. We're also doing some pilots in terms of events that are bigger than that, up to a few thousand, really also in the lead up to then when the World Economic Forum has their special annual meeting here in Singapore this August. So, Singapore was chosen as the destination to host that because there was confidence and assurance in our ability to oversee safety, health and safety, that remains of paramount importance to us, as well as to deliver the experience and the event in a safe and fruitful manner that would meet everybody's objectives. So, even as we continue to push the boundaries, I think working closely with partners remains important. We have certainly roped in our various venues, convention centers, and hotels into the whole ecosystem as well. A lot of them have attained what we call the SG Clean standards for hygiene and cleanliness, and really beyond looking at the travel borders, looking at health and hygiene of the venues that we bring our events to. It's also a lot of the protocols of how we can have interactions and business engagements in a safe and calibrated way. So that has been the approach that we have taken, and I think so far we have done it to good success. We have also definitely had good learnings along the way, and just before this, all our different event organizers here are really lobbying to try and bring in even bigger events in Singapore. And that excites us, and we definitely want to be able to support that. And so that's the next phase of what we would look forward to.
Some of the processes that were shared by Edward, would we be able to have this for our international guests to take a look so that they can also understand some of the procedures?
Yeah, definitely. So we're very happy to share. I think we have 5 key outcomes that we really look at. And what's important and what we're trialing now is really to have a stepped up testing regime that then replaces the need for quarantine. So as you have seen for a lot of the foreign attendees that came in for the event, if we get them to do some amount of pre-departure testing, on-arrival testing, and then pre-event testing, it gives us greater assurance that then they have a COVID negative test, and then they are then allowed to attend the conference or the business event along with others. And now with vaccinations rolling out in Singapore as well as around the world, we are trying to work towards having some kind of international recognition of the vaccination certificate. So I think our authorities are in conversations with organizations like the International Civil Aviation Organization and IATA to see how we can develop some kind of safety vaccination certificate. So that also helps to expedite people traveling across borders.
But we don't see, I suppose the lessons or the takeaway is that for the business events, we shouldn't stop. But I think there will be processes that can be minimized or elevated in time to come. So you might not want to spend too much time on talking for the organizers to have this 60 minutes with their delegates when all of a sudden they just have to breeze through,
Fair enough, fair enough.
So it would be good. That's great. So before we allow the questions to go, I have one more bit question that I'd like to ask to each one of you, so that we can then open the floor to other questions, right? All of you have organized your meetings, and thank you for sharing some of your takeaways. What is your outlook, particularly perhaps maybe for your own companies or so forth, for your international meetings? So I think, Sean, you were alluding to something as you were saying before. So perhaps maybe I'll start with you first. Tell us, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, this year, we remain very optimistic. And, we picked Singapore for our conference location for 2020 because it really is a beacon for sustainable urbanism. And after seeing the way, after COVID, it becomes even more important, I think. And so we want to still have our large conference in Singapore in 2021. So our plan as of now is in November to have 2,000 attendees of our membership come to Singapore and celebrate the tall buildings and urban environment that we have here in Southeast Asia. Of course, remaining cautiously optimistic. You know, I still think we have to be flexible and we have to be agile. We will have an event in Singapore this year. You know, the size of it or the location, and I'm sure it'll be hybrid too. But I'm really hoping that the measures that, you know, STB and MOH have been put in place, and, you know, all the other factors around vaccination and confidence will allow us to really move ahead with the large-scale conference. International travel is extremely important for my business as well as all of yours. And, you know, I've been in Singapore now. I've traveled since over a year now.
Yeah.
And that's, it's been great in many ways, but I'm looking forward to getting on that plane again soon.
I think, well, I think the major takeaway from most, I think Julie mentioned it as well, is that while all of us have adapted to the virtual and hybrid fashion, I think there is nothing that beats a face-to-face. And I think we have to be hopeful, but in the meantime, I think we're not taking a pause. I think we're still pursuing, because I think it's really, as what Jeannie mentioned, it's economic drives that really will need for us to actually pursue. Of the 2,000, how many are international delegates that you're thinking of?
It's mostly international. We'll have a good turnout here as well, but I mean, typically it's 75–80% is our overseas membership. I mean, we really, you know, it's an international business, and you know, there's a great group of members, and we love to get together every year and exchange ideas and have that in-person, you know, contact. So.
And how long will your meeting be for?
Well, it's usually 3 days of a conference, and then we like to have site visits and, you know, an off-site program. So it's really about
all our structure of our tall buildings, right?
Exactly. You know, that's one of the funnest things. You know, we love to meet together, and there's a lot of evening things, but, you know, then we love to have a walk around and all the new stuff that's popping up. So it'll be 5 days. So many of our attendees stay for the week, and they visit some of the regional areas too, typically.
So regardless of whether there's a vaccine or whether we still have to do the antigen tests, you are going to have a meeting at the 2021 in Singapore.
Yes.
For about 2,000. And if you, I presume if you're having 2,000, you're still going to do the broadcast and probably reach another few thousand.
We will. And that's this year, or last year was the first time we were actually experimenting with that, and it really helped us evolve. You know, we're definitely going to have our 21 conference here. The size, though, it will really depend on, you know, the things that we're all talking about. But I'm very hopeful, very optimistic.
Julie, what about you? This time have the real champagne that's there with everybody coming.
Yeah. We absolutely look forward to that, you know, Janet. So the idea, I mean, we're very, very confident about, you know, the measures that Singapore has taken, you know, the whole works of it. And so we're really looking for Singapore to host the Invisalign Asia Pacific Summit. And we're looking to bring in excess of 1,000 healthcare professionals in
all
quarter
around the world
of this year, mainly from Asia Pacific, but of course we would have you know, professionals coming in from Europe and US, and you're talking about, you know, healthcare professionals across the region, right? You know, in the past year we have done numerous symposiums as virtual, and the constant feedback we've received is we want to be together. Yeah. And, you know, we all agree nothing beats a face-to-face physical interaction, that networking, that sharing, the sense of community. And I think that's strength, that's unity for, you know, for the folks who are using, and the doctors who are using Invisalign and iTero. So we're looking forward to that, you know, and one consideration which I've mentioned is if we can, you know, use all the measures that, you know, STB has put together and have a very tight agenda and it's controlled. The idea is to see if we can, you know, allow this group of participants to be able to go back, and because it's a controlled agenda, a controlled venue, a controlled kind of program, to go back home without having to be quarantined. Mm-hmm. And I think that would speak volume of, you know, what actually took place, that people felt safe enough to do that. So I would, appeal to the international, I guess, the various bodies to consider that, because I think we can bring in more than 1,000 if that can happen.
That's fantastic. Well, I think, let's be hopeful. I think to say that everyone have to meet face to face, I think is music to every single destination, every country's ears. And I hope that panel discussion like this will moot wonderful ideas for the right kind of platforms to raise to the right kind of authorities to see how for business events, how we can help to make this happen. And on that note, I think that we'll pass it on to Patricia, who you're going to tell us that you're going to do it, right?
No pressure.
Yes. I'm happy to actually do a quick, I was the last one to speak, Janet. Thank you for that, because I'm very encouraged.
I still have the authority.
Oh, right. But from the user's perspective, I'm very encouraged, and wearing the head of an association, I'm very encouraged to hear both Sean and Julie say they are looking forward to having face-to-face events. Because for me, I firmly believe that face-to-face events is the way to go. It will never go off. Hybrid events is here to stay. It's never going to be either or physical or virtual. It's going to be hybrid. And the key point, like what Julie mentioned earlier on, the beauty of face-to-face is that we are all humans and we need connection. And only face-to-face will allow that opportunity to have that interaction, to share ideas. And the fact that we had 300 people willing to come down, take the antigen test with us for 2 days. So they didn't just take it for 1 day, they took it for 2 days.
And the 2 days, they had to do the tests daily.
Correct, exactly. So the fact that they were willing to come down and join in, it's a very strong, it sends a very strong signal and indication to us that the industry is ready to meet again in a safe manner. So we are very encouraged by that. We can deliver content, virtually very well, but I think we're still a very long way from learning how to network virtually. It's just missing that connection, when you're talking to your computer. How do you actually, add in that human element to it? So things like in-person greeting, the serendipitous moments, it's only available when you meet in person. Yeah. So, yeah.
Actually, in summary, before I open it to the questions and answers, being very encouraged with the various ways that you all have had your meetings, it would appear to me that what COVID has done is accelerated a larger audience, if you like, through digital. I think we now have to depend on our doctors and our scientists and our Ministry of Health. How do we grapple with it? Because, just like we push to cutting edge, our viruses also push the cutting edge with all the new variants that are coming in. I would say that physical meetings would be here to stay, and it's larger from the sound of it. But I also think that the hybrid meetings and all that would mean that you'll cast a much larger audience. And I suppose maybe if one can say that it would take the bright side of things. Okay, before I will let Jeannie will say a few things at the end, but perhaps maybe a good time now is to have the questions from everyone. So to take some questions from the audience. So let's see what we have. So now, when I read the questions out from the audience, any one of you can please be spontaneous enough to say, I'll answer it. Also be very spontaneous to say, I agree or disagree. It doesn't really sort of matter, but I think what is very important is for the audience to know. So the first question is, I would like to term Singapore as a mice king. Having said that, may I know what is your forecast for 2022? What do you reimagine for Singapore and for Asia Pacific in general for the near future? What do you think the post-COVID MICE travelers are looking at in Singapore? So who would like to take a stab at this? Because 3 of you did all your events in Singapore, so would you all like to take, I leave Jeannie, I'll save Jeannie to the end, right?
I can go first.
Please, go ahead.
Sure, I think I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't claim to be able to forecast for 2022. But I see a trend So back to my earlier point on face-to-face, it's still a necessity. People will still come back. Face-to-face meetings will still be here. Maybe as we try and roll out the vaccines and everything, as we try and overcome this recovery journey together, I see more smaller regional events coming together first. And through those events, we learn. Because right now, it's safe for us to experiment, maybe make some mistakes, learn from it, and then so that when we start building this experience, this box of experience, we can use that for bigger events. So I see the return of smaller regional events first. And I also see that destinations, as well as venues or partners who are willing to partner with the event organizers and has demonstrated this capability, I see these destinations as preferred destinations. Because number one, we need to make our participants feel safe, that they would like to come and join us physically at an event. So that's something that it's a no-brainer. It's no longer either or. You need to make them feel safe in order for them to come out of their house and join in person. So working with a destination who has the protocols and measures in place to give that assurance will help.
Okay. Yep. So Julie, I can add on to what Pat said. I think if you look at business travelers, I think feeling safe is one, but I think being able to get in and out very quickly, especially at the borders. So I think, the governments around the region, they understand the importance of mice. I think every government is looking to vaccinate their people and take all the precautions that's needed. Yeah. So I think, looking into the near future, I think travel will resume, but one key factor would be, what Pat said, safety. But for business travelers, is how seamless that whole travel can be, right? I mean, if you have to travel for a day and you are stuck at the airport for 3 hours, either way, I think that's going to be an issue, right? So I think the ability to say, do we have a common platform to recognize a vaccination or recognize test results so that the whole region speaks the same language? I think that will help tremendously.
I think that's a very good point, but I suppose it's a task that actually would be, I think, quite tough. But anyway, I think it's a very, very good thought, and I think that what should be pushed through. Sean?
Well, 2022 is a long way away, and I remain very optimistic. I think that you'll see those green lanes opening up with all of the, definitely local events, as you said. But one of the things that you said that's really important is, business travelers and people that want to attend these types of conferences will be looking for destinations that are safe. So I think you'll see Singapore attracting people going from MICE events from all over the world. People in the US are going to want to go somewhere that they feel safe, that they feel comfortable, that they know that they're going to be looked after. So, I'm a little more hopeful that it won't just be regional. I think it'll blossom into something else. But 2022 is a long way away, and things are moving very fast. So let's be hopeful.
The fact that both of you are doing your meetings in 2021, I think that is really fantastic. I think that is regardless of what's happening. We have only about 4 minutes left, and perhaps maybe at this time here, we're going to put the question over to Jeannie. Come on, Jeannie.
Yeah, so, well, I think they've all raised very important considerations, right? What will happen in 2022? Yeah, no one of us can really predict. None of us predicted 2020. So we can only hope and be optimistic. But I agree with, I think, the points that all three of the other panelists have raised. 2022, hopefully we will have, a much higher level of confidence in executing and delivering larger size meetings and conferences, of course, in a different way. So whenever we look at reopening and planning, we never look at having no positive cases. We never look at eliminating all risk, because that's just not possible. You risk just not doing anything if you are not willing to take some risk. So then we just look at it from a risk mitigation perspective, and we look at how we can mitigate as much of the risk as possible to give people the highest level of confidence and assurance. So I think what event organizers and attendees all have to contend with then is there will be some inconveniences. There will be some investment in terms of new protocols, new ways of doing things. But in the end, I do think it's going to be worth the effort, because people crave the face-to-face. We did a perception audit, and there is a huge pent-up demand from people who want to travel again, whether for business or leisure, but you will have to do it in a different way. And I think the investments that are being made now to evolve or to reimagine in a different way will pay off, because these will stay even after we get out of COVID. Virtual events, I think, will be the mainstay,
Correct.
even post-COVID, because people see the convenience of it. Having some of these safety protocols will remain, because especially when you have large congregations of people coming together, there will be sort of infection control measures that will have to remain. Cleanliness and hygiene, things like that will still remain as well, even in a post-COVID environment. So I think a lot of these investments will stay. And the biggest investment, I think, is really the capability development and change of mindset. People need to be flexible, to be nimble, and to be very resilient, which the industry has clearly shown, and be able to invest in, I suppose, pivoting to new ways of doing business, the investments in technology, all that I think will then help to strengthen the industry to emerge stronger post-COVID.
I think that those are excellent points, and I think that we will just have to bear in mind. I guess what Julie and Sean, as well as Pat, is saying is that globally, we are a global community. Just having a few would just not work. I think it has to be all-inclusive, and I think the best thing is something like what Singapore is doing is a step up. We certainly want all the rest of the other countries to follow suit and be just as safe as possible. On that note, I'd like to thank each one of you, Patricia, Sean, Julie, and of course, Jeannie from the Tourism Board.
Thank you, Janet.
I think all of the documentation will be made available for them. It was wonderful. It was such a pleasure to actually be able to be the moderator, and I've learned so much myself. With that, I'd like to say thank you. And I'm so sorry we only had one question that we was able, but I think Singapore Tourism Board will answer a whole host of questions, perhaps maybe not online. Right, with that, thank you very much, and have a great evening, afternoon, and morning. Bye-bye.
Thank you.